Good morning, everybody. I am so happy to be here with you. I'm Jacqueline Terrassa. I'm the Carolyn Muzzy Director here at the Colby College Museum of Art. And this is the first time that we actually have this part of the program here in this wonderful concert hall of the Gordon Center for Creative and Performing Arts. So welcome to this wonderful venue and welcome to the Summer Luncheon. Really, it gives me such joy to be here with you in community. The mission of the Colby Museum is to open access to art and to artists, and to be a forum for experimentation, for research, for dialogue, for creative and joyful connection. And that is what we are here today to do. At the museum, we collect and we present exhibitions and programs, and we incubate new research and artistic practice in order to empower people, starting with our students at Colby, and not limited to our students at Colby, to explore the complexity of the American experience in all of its forms. As we begin today, I want to reflect on the fact that the American experience is a more recent thing. There have been people who have stewarded these lands for millennia. We are, in fact, in the ancestral homelands of the Wabanaki, the Abenaki, the Maliseet, the Micmac, the Passamaquoddy, and the Penobscot people. And as we work with artists and other culture bearers who are part of the Wabanaki community and other communities, we seek to actively listen, amplify understanding of Native values, and use our resources to build better futures. One of the things that we are doing today is we are opening a wonderful exhibition, Gertrude Abercrombie, The Whole World is a Mystery. And this exhibition was co-organized with our partners at the Carnegie Museum of Art in Pittsburgh, a museum that I strongly encourage you to visit. And we have here with us the director of that museum, the Henry J. Heinz II Director at the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh, Eric Crosby, who is sitting right there. And we also have Cynthia Stuckey, who is an assistant curator at that museum and worked with our own Sarah Humphreybell in co-curating this wonderful exhibition. And I know a lot of you were looking at that exhibition earlier. So my gratitude to them and my gratitude to the many lenders, to the catalog contributors, to the supporters, the venue partners, and the staff of both the Carnegie Museum and our museum for their extraordinary work in making this a reality. Gertrude Abercrombie truly defied categories and made her own path. She created paintings that were full of evocative power and that were deeply humorous while being absolutely serious at the same time. She embraced the most radical forms of making, including her love for experimental jazz. And she also drew constantly from her own life and the world around her, making a home for herself in Chicago in its Hyde Park neighborhood. During the awards portion of the program, and just before lunch, we will be honoring two outstanding artists who have forged their own paths and have paid close attention to the world around them. And before that, I am honored to be in conversation with two artists, Nari Ward and Douglas Ewart. And the artworks at the museum provide a context for them being here, and you will learn more about that during our conversation. There is extended information in your programs, so we are going to skip bios for everybody this morning and get to the meat of things. And first of all, we will begin with music. So I am absolutely elated to have Douglas Ewart, who will perform a short piece before we move into the conversation. Thank you, Douglas, and thank you, everybody.
Concentric means and ends must meet now. Concentric we are, emanating from the same center tree, the tree of life with multitudinous branches, means and ends meeting. They are in constant contact. We cannot make peace by conflict and carnage. That unending fallacy has been our barbarous reality. The concentric rings of trees chronicles the earth's conduct and human encroachments. From the seed to the rhizomes to the roots to the canopy, trees are the perfect illustration of a path to a pinnacle. They all bear witness to the essentiality of cooperation, feeding each other, concentric, the rings uttered by a pebble plunged into a pool, the ocean of life, unerring, unendingly traversing, transmitting, transforming, and transcending all. Concentric, ever expanding. Concentric from the minute to the exponential. Concentric, the echoes of time, the echoes of time.
Can you all hear me? Excellent. Do you want to try and make sure everybody hears you?
Yeah, testing. Can you guys hear me? Great.
Okay, so we will project. Excellent. That's why we're doing this. Douglas, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're an extraordinary person, artist, musician, everything, and it's just an honor to have you here. And
My
Nari,
mother's fault.
it's your mother's fault. And Nari, same to you. So I'm just thrilled to begin this conversation.
Could I just say something?
Yes.
I think people lose the fact that Douglas, materially, what looks like a pipe. The first thing is something that a plumber would use, and then the small thing he used is actually a bone. And I think that's really important to kind of know.
Absolutely.
That these were the things that you're listening to.
Have other histories, prior histories. We will talk about that, prior histories, and how they come back to us.
Exactly.
And as I enter this conversation, in addition to that, a couple of the things that are on my mind, and we will touch on them as we talk, are your shared roots in Jamaica, community and collectivity, and then the fact that you both have pursued a truly experimental practice. And I'm interested in how that manifests in many different ways. So we're going to begin with works that are on view at the Colby Museum. And we'll start with this one. This is a piece by Nari Ward. And in the front, you see a piece by Virgil Ortiz called Amtua. But focusing on the piece, Oh Freedom, in the back, it was commissioned for the reinstallation of the Lunder Wing, which we reopened back in the fall. And it is made of shoelaces. And I'm wondering, Nari, as you, when we commissioned that, you were beginning to work on the series. And I'm wondering if you can speak about the phrase, oh freedom, where that comes from, and your use of shoelaces for this and other works.
Yeah, sure. So the shoe, a lot of my practice is, I think I'm more of a social realist in that I start with something that's recognizable, like whether it's a found object or a shoelace, and then the idea is then trying to tell a story with it or take the viewer on a journey with it. And so the shoelaces, I thought, were something that everybody had some experience from a small child to older person. And I wondered, and also I was trained as a matter of fact, I went to grad school as a drawer. Like my major was drawing. So basically it's a line. And so I'm returning back to a kind of formal dialogue, but also a conversation of familiarity. And I started working the shoelaces for that reason. It's recognizable. But then what's important for the piece and important for all the shoelace works is that they're wall drawings. They're always in the wall. They're part of the architecture. And one of the very first shoelace work I did that kind of led me on this journey was our phrase, we the people.
Here we go.
Which is this one. And really it was about trying to call attention to something, a phrase or a way of thinking that I think people take for granted, or they see it, that they don't see it. They see it so much they don't think about it. And so it was really about trying to bring something to a focus, all right, and enlarging it and become a dialogue with the body again, the same way the shoelaces and with the architecture. So the really great thing for me about all of these shoelace works when they're large scale is that depending on your relationship to them, they become legible at times, and other moments they're totally abstract because you're not able to read the entire text. So Oh Freedom was actually a kind of investigation I had into phrases that were civil rights era phrases that dealt with the kind of communal dialogue of marching or congregating in some social justice manner. And this phrase is an old spiritual, old Negro spiritual, that again was used during the civil rights period. It's a phrase for me that it talks about this notion of devotion, but also resistance. And I felt like those are two very pivotal and maybe somewhat necessary aspects of the human condition. And so that's why I really wanted to bring it into a conversation with the space and with the body. the viewer's body.
Thank you for that. And speaking of bodies, the bodies needed to make music. And so on view in our galleries is this piece. It's an installation, a video installation by the artist Stan Douglas called Orchamp. And Orchamp roughly translates into off-camera or off-view. And it is really, we're going to play a moment of video. It features Douglas with 3 other musicians some years ago. But it is an exploration of the performance of experimental music, both in terms of the practice of that performance, but also to some degree, the spectacle of performing as well. And then it has all kinds of other resonances. So it is based, the music that you hear is a composition so it riffs off on a composition by the composer Albert Ayler. And the title of that piece is Spirits Rejoice, which Ayler composed in 1965. Ayler was somebody who went to Europe, particularly to Paris, to really find his own freedom as a musician and as a composer. And so this piece also reflects that moment. So I'm going to play a little bit of the video so you have a sense of it, and then we'll talk about it. The installation, there are 2 screens back to back. And it goes on. It's about 13 minutes long. I definitely encourage you to experience it in the space and kind of in the round. Douglas, I'm wondering if you can say a word about the music and your experience. I mean, this was some years ago, but nonetheless, your experience with the work of Albert Ayler as well.
Well, the work is by Albert Ayler. It's really based around the anthem of France, and you know, George Lewis is the person that brought this particular work together with Oliver Johnson and Kent Carter. I was worried about not recalling his name, but because, you know, sometimes I remembered Carter, but I couldn't remember the first name. But you know, we went to Paris at the Pompidou and worked on the music there. Actually, it was the first time that we were playing it together. And I actually borrowed that tenor saxophone from somebody because I didn't have a tenor at the time. But just reminiscing about the work and the time that we worked together right there in the studio and learned the piece by rote, because it's the best way to really have command of a piece. I don't know if there's much more I can say. And of course, Stanley Douglas, who is a fantastic filmmaker and did some experimenting, you know, with the camera being on a track and so on. And we spent several days in the studio working on the piece, just getting the timing and so on together and having an interaction. Because often people don't realize what's involved in good improvisation, I would say. Because people say you make it up and it's true, you make it up, but you make it up after you've gathered a lot of material over time, and the competency on the instrument and working with different people, because different ingredients bring a different vibration, a different dimension to working together. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And this piece really put Stan Douglas on the map. It's a piece that was created in 1992. And that's an important moment that we will return to. I'm interested, you you mentioned George Lewis, who is the person who is on the trombone playing with you, and an incredible musician, composer, educator, theorist. And he literally wrote the book on the Association for the Advancement for Creative Musicians, which is an organization based in Chicago. It started in the south side of Chicago in 1965, and you were president of that group for many years.
Yes, and I want to say that it was funny because some of the members of the art ensemble, George Lewis was passing a building at the University of Chicago where some of the AACM elders and one of the founders were playing, and so he went in and during the rehearsal, and this is how I got to meet George. They came back because Joseph Jarman was one of the musicians at that rehearsal, and who is one of my crucial mentors, and he said, "There's this guy that we've met today, you should meet him. I think you guys would get along." That was 1971, and we became friends, and I had a band at the time called The Elements, and George became part of that, and we've done countless collaborations, so it was quite a fortuitous time for me and for him, and it's great to have that kind of connection that still endures, yes.
And I'm wondering if you can say a word about some of the principles underlying the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, because I think it's such an important organization that has led to so much as well.
I think, there's a saying that Elijah Muhammad said, "Do for self." And it's not doing for self in a selfish way, it's doing for self in a communal way, as you would in your families, where you develop a connection and you develop inspiration and you develop a trajectory based on what's been infused in you by the people that, both your parents, guardians, and in our case, people from the neighborhood that were so instrumental in our development. But Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in the United States, not barring the South. And so it was crucial for these musicians to come together. There was a lot of turmoil in Chicago, and it was difficult for musicians to earn a living, still is. But then it was compounded by segregation. So the founding of the association was a means of survival, and as I like to say, thrival, that we've thrived as a result. The organization is now 60 years old. Last May 8th, the official founding date of the organization. And what happened was some of the musicians, Phil Coran, Jody Christian, Muhal Richard Abrams, and Steve McCall were the four architects that came together and developed the notion of the organization. So from that, one of the crucial components, and George and I are some of the graduates of the school, was they formed a school that gave free lessons to neighborhood youth that were interested, and we began studying and immediately jumped into not just instrument technique, but learning theory and compositions, because our composition. When you go to schools, they often delay for years the notion of you composing, whereas with the association, it was an immediate thrust of the school to do composition. and to put on your own concerts, to learn how to do for self. For example, when we started, after a year of study, I started putting on some of my own concerts. So you don't have any money to put on a concert, so you go to a gallery or a church or a concert space and you talk the person into allowing you to utilize the space. We made our own posters, and then we did our own distribution. I don't know how many of you remember press type, but it was but it was a crucial way of making your own posters, where you get a sheet of letters and you scratch it off or rub it onto the surface of paper, and this is how you did your thing. And we were so broke sometimes, we had mismatched fonts, so that you just use, because it's like $4 or something for a sheet, a lot of money. Anyway.
Well, that's great. We're going to go to this piece. Speaking of music, Nari, you, Oh Freedom, as you said, was based on an old hymn, and you've done a number of works, many works that involve music. This is one of them, not made with press type. Do you want to say a word about this piece? It's on view right now in Portugal.
Yeah, so this is my first adventure into a marble piece. So that's all marble. We were talking about Douglas and I coming from the little island of Jamaica. And in Jamaica, this is something that is quite popular, that the neighborhood folks would get together and they have sound systems that would play each other. So basically it would be these massive speakers that they would play, and people would come and gather and dance and sell cookies or food. So it was also, again, an excuse to come together after a week of backbreaking work. It's also where you saw your neighbors. So this was a really crucial part of the cultural scene in Jamaica for many years, and still is. This gave birth to, I don't know if you guys heard of DJ Kool Herc. Kool Herc was a DJ, Jamaican background, that lived in the Bronx, and he started taking his turntables to the parks, and he was kind of the founder, beginning of rap music. So for me, the connection between this moment in Jamaica, cultural moment in Jamaica, and rap music and what it's become, I think a lot of people don't know that history. And I really wanted to memorialize the history by creating this this new object. It doesn't play. I know that's the first question people ask. What sound does it make? The sound is actually, for me, the sound is the sound of pressure, because what you see in the marble is actually years of, from marble gets its life, it starts out as a granite, and over time, pressure, it becomes these lines, grains are left with it. And so there's a dialogue with this idea of pressure and witness, the witness and again, the collective experience. I think the thing also that when I saw Douglas's piece today for the first time, the piece he collaborated with Stan Douglas, is for me, the screen becomes this witnessing element. And I think part of being a witness, part of the experience of witnessing is a kind of realization that you're never going to see everything. You're seeing one moment. And that witnessing part, it highlights the dialogue between you and the person you're witnessing it with. So the experience of, the collective experience of seeing something, I think is so important in terms of music, but also in terms of sculpture, mainly in visual arts.
Thank you for that. This is an earlier piece from 2015 called Spellbound, also referring to music. And then a more recent piece that becomes, this one, you made it last year, and we're going to return to this exhibition, Groundbreak, where the work itself becomes a stage for a performance. Do you want to say a word about this piece?
So what it is it's copper, patinaed copper. There's a brick on top, brick, and then the coppers. So the idea was, it is basically a stage I wanted to create, but it was a stage for the viewer initially. And in the patina, you're looking at is actually these broken bricks. They're bricks that you see a lot in construction, cinder blocks. So they're sort of defining the space, but they're also this fracturing of the bricks that are patinaed into the copper. I started using copper a lot because it's a material that I connected with this notion of resilience. It doesn't decay. That's why it's used in construction of roofing. But it's also a material that, with relationship to the body, there's an element of healing that's associated with it. And I was really fascinated with the idea of trying to connect with this idea of healing and witnessing something.
Mm. Speaking of healing and witnessing, Douglas, you have been in recent years, you've been working on a series of works, including a performance that we will play in a moment, on a series of works that pay tribute to George Perry Floyd. And to the right is a staff. It's an instrument that you've made. Yes. And to the left, I believe you've been doing also performances, workshops outdoors as well. And I'm wondering if you would like to say a word about how you have approached the notion of tribute in light of this terrible event that happened 5 years ago of the murder of George Floyd. I
always have to refer to growing up in Jamaica. It was such a wonderful childhood, and learning how to make things and learning how to handle tools and to see things in a way where you have to be resourceful to transform things that people would normally discard here, especially. Many of the things that I build, I go through alleys here, and you can actually pick up a solid bicycle here, rideable. You'd never find that in Jamaica. But this piece, George Floyd's murder took place very close to my house. It's 7 blocks away, so the tumultuous nature of the aftermath affected us very much. But this piece I began before George Floyd's murder, and it wasn't working out. I actually wanted to put it on a bamboo pole, but the pole bent because after you put so many of those on a pole or a stick, it begins to, in terms of bamboo, it begins to make a contour that I didn't want for this instrument. So I wound up having to make it out of maple or oak or cherry, harder kind of sturdier base for the instrument. So when George Floyd was murdered, I went back to the workshop, and somehow, because when we hear about the philosophical or hear the philosophical statements of artists, we often think that, this is so, everything is just come together. Well, not for me, it's cumulative. So the notion of it was bunt pans, these pans are both tin, which the original bunt pans are, B-U-N-D-T pans, and then the notion of bunting in baseball, B-U-N-T, which is a sacrifice move most of the time when a player bunts, because they bunt so that the bases, especially if the bases are loaded or has several people on there, if you can bunt, the fielders have to run in, and by the time they do that, someone has made the home plate or several have made the home plate. So that notion that George Floyd bunted with his life. Well, my sister, who I love dearly, was argumentative about, whether George Floyd was cognizant of, I said whether he bunted deliberately or inadvertently, the repercussions are the same, which is it attracted it had global impact. I was going to say reaction, but I want to go beyond the word of a reaction. People have been feeling the pain of police brutality on not just here in America, but globally. We experienced it in Jamaica as young Rastas. I was a young Ras, maybe 12, 13 by then. My father wasn't very happy about those. But you know, that's part of the importance. Anyway, making that correlation between the bunt pan, the bunt thing in baseball, and making a confluence of those ideas. And then the instrument is incredible. The sound, the tin, the one that's made of tin gives a really nice low frequency, and then the others, as you'll see and hear, just incredible, because this guy named Delaney, after World War II, developed casted bunt pans. Before that, they were made of tin. And so when I first struck one of these things, I started collecting them, not knowing that I was going to eventually put it on a staff. I just had them laid out and was using them in that manner. And of course, you can strike them, you can rub them, and bowing is incredible what the sound is.
We're going to play this piece. It will be the full length of the piece, which is the duration of the time that George Floyd struggled for his life. And so it's almost 10 minutes long. So we'll play that, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Okay.
With the light coming in. Oh, it's
George Floyd was born on Sunday, the 14th of October, 1973.
1973. George Floyd.
To Larcenia
George.
and George Terry Jones Floyd, in North Carolina. George was one of 6 children: Terrence, George, Brittany, Terrence, Latoya, Darnella, George, like all of us, was a complex figure. George Floyd had 5 children. On May the 25th, 2020, George Floyd was murdered at the corner of 38th Street and Chicago Avenue, South Minneapolis. George Floyd was murdered by Terry Chauvin, who knelt on the man's neck for 9 minutes. Chauvin's colleagues looked on and scarcely intervened. George Floyd was murdered in broad daylight for all to see, and thanks to the wherewithal of Theresa, we had unequivocal proof, irrefutable proof that it was an extrajudicial killing. The world in a way never before seen, due to the confluence of COVID-19 and the fact that people were off from their plantations, work, children off school, and people were able to give their undivided attention to what has become a ubiquitous activity in America, the killing of black and brown people for infinitesimal reasons. The children are our only hope. George Floyd bunted with his life. George Floyd bunted with his life. George Floyd made a sacrifice so that the world could be awakened to the atrocities that are a daily occurrence globally, that are a daily occurrence globally. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, Amadou Diallo, Trayvon Martin, George Stenny, we can't breathe. The children are our only hope. We love ourselves. We love the human spirit. We love ourselves. We love the human spirit. George Floyd bunted with his life, deliberately or inadvertently. The ramifications are the same.
Witnessing, and I think about how with this piece and also with your work, Nari, nothing is new. Things are always, history is retaken, brought forth, and in your case with this piece, Douglas, is such an invitation to aim to heal and aim to create new futures.
I think one of the things that we have to think about a lot, progress is never permanent. It has to be constantly honed, buttressed, and expanded, because there are always forces at work trying to erase whatever progress we make. And ignorance is, as my grandmother would say to us, ignorance is bliss. And so I think a lot about that as someone that's involved in teaching, from the earliest aspects, from kindergarten to the university level. And it's just a matter of comprehension that really differentiates it in my mind. And sometimes kids are even far more profound in what they do and say relative to how we look at chronology. But I think a lot about that aspect of, that we cannot rest on laurels or we cannot rest on achievements because the change, to make quantum change requires constant tilling, vigilance, and diligence to make it really happen so that we can make a transformation in humanity, in just the basic aspects of, as my grandmother would say, and I think this is the fundamental issue, if you have enough to share. If you have, and they lived that. I mean, they didn't say it, they showed it to us. They said it, but they also lived it by giving and sharing. And we couldn't say dumb stuff about other ethnicities or ethnic groups, because we didn't really, they were so smart, they never used the word race, because it's really, it's a stupid construct. And we talk about it like it's some sort of scientific thing. It's total stupidity. That's what I think, all we have to do is look at the biological aspects of humans. And I always say, I'll start revering people when they no longer eat, breathe, go to the bathroom, and no longer act, and don't bleed. And then I'm ready to do some worshiping. Other than that, sit down.
So these, again, the light in this beautiful room is getting in the way of us seeing more clearly. But to the right, let's focus on the right. We have here, Nari Ward. This is from that exhibition Groundbreak that you presented last year in Milan. And here you're reusing a phone booth. And to all of your left, there's an installation that, again, is a little dark. Let me see if this one is a little clearer, where you have these ladders, and in the front, there's bed spring. And I'm wondering if you can talk about these materials and this remaking.
Yeah. So you're looking at the bed ladder that has the bed springs that you see through, but also the bed spring, the ladder's also covered with the foam that would have been in the bed spring. So there's the mattress material. So I always think that when I'm, as a sculptor, and this is sort of what aligns me with the practice that Douglas has of performance, I never really think about making something that's going to go on a pedestal, right? I'm always thinking about, okay, how can I make this thing that people know something about, because it's some kind of found object, but then how can I tell another kind of story for it? And then how can I place that story in a space that may be mysterious? So I'm always trying to ceremonialize the work, trying to find another place for it to exist beyond the immediate museum or gallery exhibition. So that's why when we saw the piece with the Groundbreak, recreating that stage for people to engage with initially, and then for the viewer to have an experience which was pivotal for the success of the work. The other motivation for me in creating the work is really this, and I think Douglas touched on it, this notion of empathy, right? Like, how do you look at something or look at someone and see yourself in them? And I think that that exercise, because it's not just something, I think kids are born at it maybe, but something happens that we separate ourselves from really engaging on that level, maybe for survival. But I feel like exercising that back into your life is about looking and maybe even getting lost sometimes. And then the losing of yourself in your space of imagination, I think, is really what I'm thinking. But when I was talking about mystery, it was about trying to take something familiar, like that's a telephone booth, and most people have an experience with that. But then the telephone booth no longer functions like a regular telephone booth would. And then maybe there's another kind of directive that the person who made this booth is trying to, or story, is trying to tell you. And I think that being willing to lose yourself in that is an act of empathy, because you have to start to let go of your own expectations for that thing and figure out another kind of expectation. So I felt like that was a really important, that's an important directive for me, thinking about what's the success of a work, right? It's not that it looks like something we know, it's that it brings us someplace that maybe, at least me initially, it brings you someplace that you're not familiar with. And the idea of layering the work, or multiple moments of time, is what I think performance allows. And so I'm always trying to collaborate with performers for that reason, that The work gets to operate, the storyline gets to operate in different time space. It gets to perhaps engage the viewer in a different relationship to each other, the collective group. And I think those kinds of building space is the real dark. You're looking at these works, you're looking at them on the screen, but I think part of what we lose, and even when I saw my piece here, and finally got a chance to see my piece here at Colby, is the experience of space, and the experience of space and time in dialogue with materiality. And I feel like one of the things that Douglas brought up that I really connected with, and also have a lot of resistance from, because I don't want to romanticize limitations, right? Is that as coming from a sort of third world background where there isn't a lot of manufacturing and capitalism isn't at its full potential, perhaps. Things are thrown out and then they're reused and remade, and they call that maybe there's a sense of poverty that's aligned with that, right, or desperation. And I think it's inevitable that maybe that's what people think, but I do think that there is this dialogue with remaking and imagination and recreating that's really powerful in thinking about the human condition that maybe we don't think about so much in a so-called first world environment, right? That happens very instinctively in these kind of in these other limited spaces. All that to say is, and much I'm attracted to it, I'm also trying to risk romanticizing it, because a lot of times people are in those positions because they don't have that privilege and option of doing anything else. And as an artist that goes from one space to the next, I think I'm entitled to that privilege. So I honor that by using that kind of directive, and I choose to do that. And I think part of the choosing is also connecting it with the familiar, right? And thinking about this thing that somebody discarded, this thing that may be seen as not valuable, and then trying to bring an element of value through the storytelling that it might explore. So that the notion of value is also really an important pivoting point for thinking about the success of the work as well.
Thank you for that. I'm thinking that this is a perfect moment to transition back to hearing some music with you live and wrapping up this beautiful conversation. And I'm so grateful to have both of you here and to all of you to get to know these incredible people and their work. So with that, I'm going to welcome you, and we're going to sit back to listen to your beautiful music. Thank you.
Douglas, I didn't get a chance to ask you, then maybe I shouldn't do it in public venue, but your outfits, is this something you commissioned, or are these collaborations?
This is what, I made this. I think the reverse, and part of the idea of third world and so on, one of the stories about it is at the Bandung conference in Indonesia, that notion about third world came about. And then there's also a story that a French writer, critic, utilized that saying. But I think we're from the first world because we don't waste things. And the abuse of the planet is what's going to wipe us out. Everybody here is on a diet of microplastics. We're eating it and ingesting it. And as a result, I guess we'll mutate to maybe be plastic people. We're already plastic people in terms of not plasticity, but plastic. You know what I say?
All right.
Now I don't want to drink my water.
No, I mean, because as we drink from these containers, and it's not just the fact that it's plastic, it's poor plastic. It's the poorest kind of plastic, because these things are important for us to utilize. And this is my music too, talking to you, because I want to infect you. That's what I told, when I would go to class and talk. The idea is to have us think some of the things that are crossing your mind as a teacher. That's basically what you should be involved in anyway. That's what I let my students, they're like, well, you're prejudiced. I'm like, yes, I am. Biased, but not in that narrow sense, but whenever you are putting out your idea, you're saying things that you've digested, and now you're putting out the results of that. But thank you, Nari, for your work as well. But coming from Jamaica has made me, that's how the bunt pan came to be. That's how, many of the things that I make using rubber tires, for example. In Jamaica, people make shoes from it, belts, all kinds of baskets, instead of just throwing it away. And so here, there's no such thing as privilege. It's abuse. There's no thing about being privileged. If you have a lot and people don't have anything, it's not a privilege. It's something you need to do something about. That's how I grew up. I'm going to make this last thing and then I'll play. I'm playing to you now. It's a poem or a prose. But my father's mother, my grandfather was working, and she was working at home, because it's serious work at home if you ever work at home. You cook, you clean, you wash, you see to the kids, your work is like a lot longer most of the time than the person that has to go outside. But anyway, my grandfather, they were saving this money for a house, and my grandmother would help other people with the money. So my grandfather would come and say, Becky, I saw this house. And she would suck her teeth. I couldn't get my suck teeth right away. But she would just suck her teeth, and I thought, what a wonderful relationship they had, because some people, that would cause a split. With him, it was just like, I have to deal with this woman. And so, but she fed other people. They eventually bought a house. I'm just saying to you, that kind of feeling, that kind of notion that something was more immediate to take care of some people than for them to get this house that my grandfather wanted to have. And they eventually had this house. And then they had lots of people beside their own kids in there.
Thank you. Thank you again, Douglas Ewart, Nari Ward. We're going to transition now to the awards portion. And with me is our amazing Chair of the Board of Governors, Hillary Barnes-Hoops.
Now that you know my name, I wanted to tell you that it truly is an honor to serve as the chair of the board, as well as to be a part of Director Terrassa's vision in expanding access to the museum's collection. We are all so fortunate to experience the conversation that just unfolded with Director Terrassa, Douglas Ewart, and Nari Ward. This annual program is remarkable because of the way artists capture the essence of art and art making in our lives and the way in which they embrace the practice of experimentation. In 2010, the Colby Museum began to recognize exemplary contributors to the arts community and to this Colby Museum community. We continue this tradition today by presenting two special awards. Jacqueline Terrassa will present the Cummings Award for Artistic Excellence. Jacqueline is the museum's Lindy Family Foundation Curator of Academic Programs and who makes learning and engagement come to life in the galleries. The Cummings Award celebrates distinguished artists who, in the spirit of Willard W. Cummings, and I will refer to him later as Bill, have dedicated themselves to their creative practice and who have made a positive impact on people's lives through their art, their generosity, and community building. Cummings co-founded the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture and was one of the first champions of the Colby Museum. Please join me in welcoming Jacqueline Terrassa to the podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Hillary, for the introduction. Since many of you have gotten to know more about Nari Ward's practice in this morning's conversation, and since the program handout includes a more detailed bio, I'd like to take this opportunity to share a personal anecdote, which I hope gives you a sense of the impact that Nari has on our campus community. And as you know from this morning's conversation, Nari's monumental long-term installation of shoelaces called O Freedom is on view in our Merkin Gallery in the Lunder Wing for American Art. As Lindy Family Foundation Curator of Academic Engagement, I teach a lot of classes in the galleries, and I've really enjoyed engaging students in conversation about this work as they consider it through various disciplinary lenses, such as art, history, and philosophy. After the students and I talk about the visual and material qualities of the installation, we listen to the O Freedom hymn from which the work is based. We stand silently for 3 minutes as the hymn plays in its entirety, and we behold the work with our eyes and ears. The music enhances our experience and understanding of Nari's work, which becomes even more resonant when we think about the context of its prominence in the opening gallery of our long-term exhibition, Some American Stories. Every student, every visitor walking through the Lunder Wing for American Art encounters O Freedom, a work whose scale and materials undeniably leave a lasting impression. I met Nari in 2022 on the occasion of his solo exhibition, I'll Take You There, a proclamation at Lehman Maupin in New York. Thanks to Fong Bui, former Lunder Institute Fellow, previous recipient of our Jetté Award for Leadership in the Arts, and friend to many here, I interviewed Nari for a public program at the Brooklyn Rail. Now, 3 years later, I have the privilege of teaching his work and the honor of presenting him with an award for his artistic practice. Nari's assemblages of everyday materials and found objects engage themes of race, migration, identity, democracy, and community, all issues relevant to everyone living in the United States today. His multimedia installations use humble objects to think through complex ideas, making the work feel both timely and evergreen, personal and communal at the same time. For his unwavering commitment to get us to think about the fundamental issue of what it means to be American through materials that resonate with us and our lived experiences, we honor Nari Ward. Please join me in congratulating him as he receives the Cummings Award for Artistic Excellence.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me? So I wasn't going to say anything, but thank you. But having heard the rich history of this award and the namesake, I realized that when I was a student at Skowhegan quite some number of years ago, this is now, I won't say how age, maybe in the 90s, I remember I'll tell you a quick anecdote. I remember the director at the time, Barbara Lapchick, saying that, as a student, you were coming here to do what you always do, that what you do in your home studio, you're wasting your time. You should come here and do something that you would never get a chance to do anywhere else. And so, in fact, I mentioned that as a grad student, I was actually a drawer, and that was my major. So it was at Skowhegan that I decided that I would start to do sculpture, and it sort of led me on this journey of being here. So Skowhegan was a really important moment for my evolution as an artist and as a person, and to have the name Bill Cummings on here, it's just that much more special. So thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessamine and Nari, for your remarks. 3 members of the Colby Museum community will present the Jetté Award for Leadership in the Arts. Julianne Gilland is the Deputy Director for Planning and Operations at the museum and is an incredible member of the senior team. Lisa Marin is an active member of the Board of Governors, and we are grateful for her leadership. Sierra Height, a former Colby Museum staff member, we are so delighted to have her here with us today, is now the Schiller Family Curator of Indigenous American Art at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. We give this award in memory of Edith and Ellerton Jetté. Edith Jetté, along with Bill Cummings, established the Colby Museum's Friends of Art in 1959. Ellerton Jetté was the president of Waterville's Hathaway Shirt Company and for nearly 30 years served on the Colby College Board of Trustees. This award recognizes those who have distinguished themselves through their work as leaders in arts advocacy, community building, philanthropy, scholarship, education, and museums. Please join me in welcoming Julianne, Lisa, and Sierra to the podium.
We are honored to present the 2025 Jetté Award for Leadership in the Arts to Theresa Secord, whose decades of mentorship, advocacy, and artistic excellence have left a profound impact on this museum, the state of Maine, and the field. As a member of the museum's Board of Governors for the past 7 years, Theresa has brought a strong voice, thoughtful insights, and deep expertise to our work, to expand definitions of American art, and to shape an institution and collection that reflect the complexity of the American experience. Theresa has also been a trusted advisor for some of the museum's most important projects and initiatives of the past decade, from groundbreaking exhibitions in our galleries to innovative creative production and scholarly exchange made possible through our Arlander Institute for American Art. In these and other moments, Theresa's guided our efforts to center Indigenous voices and build collaborative relationships that honor living traditions, amplify intergenerational perspectives, and confront historical erasure, work that Theresa has helped lead with vision and integrity throughout her distinguished career.
I'd like to begin by thanking Gretchen Faulkner and Jill Tompkins for their help in writing this celebration of Theresa. Over 30 years ago, Theresa Secord and a devoted group of elders founded the Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance, MIBA. As director, Theresa led efforts to advocate for Wabanaki basketry in Maine and beyond. When MIBA was founded, Wabanaki basketry was kept alive by tribal elders. Theresa recognized that in order for the tradition to survive, it was essential that basket making knowledge be passed on to younger weavers. To that end, she started an apprenticeship program allowing master weavers to pass on this tradition within their communities. Early on, Wabanaki baskets, especially historic works, were presented in a limited number of Maine museums. Theresa emboldened a new generation of basket makers to take the tradition in new directions, encouraging artists to attend gatherings and markets beyond Maine. As MIBA's reputation and successful work grew, Theresa spearheaded cultural tourism and marketing initiatives, served as mentor for new and emerging artists, advocated for preservation and access to brown ash and sweetgrass with state and federal agencies, and served as advocate for the tradition with arts and cultural agencies, work that she has been recognized for nationally. It cannot be overstated that without Theresa's efforts to support and grow new basket makers and Indigenous arts in general, we would not know the tremendous Wabanaki artists here today. Her vision and tenacity has fostered the creation of a new generation of Wabanaki artists who will transform the tradition for generations to come and keep this tradition, which is so integral to Wabanaki culture, alive.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to join Julianne and Lisa in celebrating Theresa, an incredible artist and leader who I'm grateful to consider a mentor. When I arrived at Colby in 2021 as the Ann Lunder Leland Curatorial Fellow, I first met Theresa when she graciously agreed to speak to a group of Colby student interns that I was supervising here. I was really nervous to reach out to her as I was a very junior colleague and I had already learned about some of her transformative work for Colby. Knowing that Theresa is a very busy person, as we've heard, with a lot of community responsibilities, I wasn't sure at the time if the meeting that we were inviting her to would be a priority for her. In that first meeting and in every encounter with Theresa after, I learned that she is generous with her time, willing to connect just as easily with students or with a very junior colleague as she is with folks who hold positions of power. In that sense, for me, she embodies some of the qualities that I associate most with strong Indigenous leadership. She's kind, she's open, and most of all, she's driven by a strong desire to improve the lives of Wabanaki and other Native artists. Theresa speaks and moves through the world with the intention to change this world for the betterment of Native people. I've heard her advocate for other artists countless times, making space for both emerging artists and elder artists to receive opportunities. And I've seen her hold the door open in rooms that she has access to so that others can enter and have their voices heard. Her own voice was invaluable in supporting projects that we worked on together, like the Lunder Institute's summer think tank centering Indigenous artists and the exhibition Painted Our Bodies, Hearts, and Village, which was guided by her insight. The many times I've asked for her feedback or for her perspective, she shared generously and freely, always advocating for others and pushing with care again for better Indigenous futures. That care has had a ripple effect on our field. I think you can see that better future taking shape, not just through her work here at Colby or across Wabanaki homelands or through the Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance, but in countless relationships that she's cultivated throughout her practice. I'm not exaggerating when I say that every gathering of Native artists, scholars, curators of Native art that I attended while I was at Colby, and still today when I mention that I live in Maine, other attendees will inevitably ask me, do you know Theresa, Secord? I've worked with her. We did a great project together. She's amazing. On a personal note, I can say that her encouragement and her mentorship made me a better curator, that her presence on the board made the museum a better place to work as a Native person and as a newcomer to Maine and to Wabanaki territory, and that her art and her tireless advocacy has undeniably contributed to the incredible resurgence and support for Indigenous art that I think we're seeing today. So, Wado Theresa, thank you for all you do. Please join me in welcoming Theresa.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's a lot. It's such an honor to be here and accept this award. Yeah, it's really. Thanks so much to my friends here, the Museum Board of Governors, of course, the Maine arts community, my family, and basket makers, past and present, for your belief in me. I'd be remiss as an arts leader if I didn't say a couple of things about the state of the arts. The National Endowment for the Arts that helped the Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance save ash and sweetgrass basketry by bringing forward a new generation of basket makers in the 4 federally recognized tribes here in Maine, including